Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Honorable Members. The Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to inform the Honorable House of the steps taken by the Ministry of Environment to address waste management through recycling in Fiji. Mr. Speaker, the Fijian Constitution entitles all citizens to a clean and healthy environment. A clean and healthy environment is essential for the health and well-being of the public as well as the natural ecosystems and the ability to continue to provide life-sustaining ecosystem services. Mr. Speaker, a clean environment does directly affect the health status, playing a major role in quality of life, number of years of healthy life lived, and other health disparities. The built environment, for instance, workplaces, factories, educational institutions, common recreation spaces, transit systems, etc., affects both individual health and environmental quality. For example, recycling of products greatly reduces landfill waste and the resulting toxic pollution in the same. Of course, it results in financial savings in the circular economy. The Speaker said there are countries around the world who take great pride in marketing their country as tourism destiny by showcasing how clean their country is. No visitor wants to visit a country whose environment is not clean, can be a health hazard. Countries in our neighborhood have competitions among settlements and villages for clean environment. Mr. Speaker said, clean environment is often seen from the perspective of humans only. However, the three components of the environment, physical, biological, and social, all strongly interact with each other. This phenomenon between the three enables sustainable life on Earth. When there is an imbalance created amongst these three, that is when we see sustainability being threatened. A key imbalance occurs when we continue to use resources faster than they are being produced. This is a human element contributing to the unsustainability on Earth. Therefore, Mr. Speaker said, clean environment is a binding constraint for long-term sustainable environmental growth and development. There are countries which are struggling to reverse damages to the environment, loss of habitat and species because they took the environment for granted. Some argued, along the lines of the famous economics professor Simon Kuznets, who noted that as per capita income increases, people will be willing to spend a larger share of their income on environmental goods, and thus any adverse impact on the environment in the early stages of growth could be reversed after increases in income. And at that particular point in time, Mr. Speaker said, Simon Kuznets' hypotheses were very famous and was thought to be a revolutionary argument. However, Mr. Speaker said, over time it was noted that this claim could no longer be supported empirically due to the irreversible nature of certain environmental damages. Therefore, Mr. Speaker said, environment must be seen synonymous to growth, they must go hand in hand. Mr. Speaker said, the question that arises then is who generates waste. Mr. Speaker said, everyone, every institution, every decision-making unit, households, farmers, businesses, institutions, or the educational institution, you name it, Mr. Speaker said, every decision-making unit. The Speaker says the waste generated by us humans has a great detrimental effect to the environment. We are generating far too much waste which cannot be dealt with sustainably. Increasingly, waste that is not biodegradable is fast filling our oceans and landfills. Let's take plastic waste as an example. A recent study found that of the 6.3 billion metric tons of plastic waste is being produced, out of which only 9% of that plastic waste has been recycled. Mr. Speaker said, studies indicate that if we don't act now, there will be more plastic found in our oceans than the fish stocks by 2050. Mr. Speaker said, as we all know, the negative consequences brought about by rapid industrialization and economic growth is indeed a large-scale waste generation associated with the same. Adding to this, there is an inherent behavior to choose synthetic alternatives over the natural resources. Mr. Speaker said the danger with this is that as income continues to rise, particularly in developing countries, movement from low-income category to middle-income category, and from middle-income category to high-income category, people tend to lose their consciousness about the waste that they're generating and their willingness to recycle or reduce the waste. Mr. Speaker said, solid waste management affects every human being. This is irrespective of individuals managing their own waste or the government providing these services. As national spaces around the world urbanize, develop economically, and grow in population, our World Bank report estimates that waste generation will increase to 3.4 billion tons in 2015. Speaker said, it is estimated that at least 33% of this waste is being mismanaged globally today. Mr. Speaker said, through history, humans have moved from small-scale hunter-gatherers and agrarian societies to more commercial and consumer-based societies. We have essentially moved further away from economies that value the continuation of resources to a more disposal-oriented society. Coming home here in Fiji, the waste generated in the Central Division are reflective of waste generation patterns elsewhere in Fiji. So, Mr. Speaker said, assuming that to some degree of margin of error, we can then use that as a proxy to say what is the situation with regard to waste distribution, waste generation, distribution, and disposal throughout Fiji. The Speaker said, an average Fijian produces about 0.7 kilogram of waste per day. Waste generated in the Central Division can be split into two major categories, and these are the household waste brought in by municipal council and commercial and industrial waste brought in by waste managers. Both share an equal portion of the contribution with the household waste, having a slightly bigger part of this portion. Mr. Speaker said, we have continued to exceed the year-on-year 90,000 tons mark at Tamburu landfill since 2017. And this is a clear reflection of the growth in consumerism and economy, and also a reflection that people are still not concerned and not undertaking, at least by choice, reducing waste or recycling waste. Mr. Speaker said, it is estimated that production systems will deliver about 140 billion tons per year of minerals, ores, fossil fuels, and biomass by the year 2050, 3 times the current consumption. Global food production alone needs to increase by 50% by 2050. The Speaker said natural resources such as water are in danger. Agriculture alone already accounts for about 70% of global water consumption. To meet such huge food production increase, the 2/3 of the water withdrawn from the rivers of the earth, lakes and aquifers currently used for irrigation will need to be dramatically increased, and will need to take into account the entire natural resource and environment into consideration if we want to meet up to this demand. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Mr. Speaker said, with the rate of plastic waste ending up in our oceans each year, it constitutes a serious threat to our ecosystem, wildlife, and human health. In addition, it is also projected that about 20% of the world's oil production will be used to make plastic and power the manufacturing of the same. Given this grave scenario, Mr. Speaker said, the urgent need for our is, while we continue to push for economic growth, we must not compromise on our environment. We are custodians of our environment for future generations. They too have a right to enjoy the same level of natural resources and environment quality as we are enjoying now. Mr. Speaker said, first and foremost, we must look at waste reduction. The Speaker said, while we're talking about recycling, that comes in the second stage. In the first stage, we must look within at our consumption processes, at our production system, to see how we can reduce the waste. If you are able to do that, then the recycling part will be much easier and a smaller lot to deal with. So Mr. Speaker said, we need to re-engineer our production process. We need to re-look at our consumption processes. waste volumes can be significantly reduced if waste avoidance behaviors are adopted. This means making a conscious change and choosing to select products that are not developed on a single-use premises. We must make attempts to recycle waste, at least those that are generated by us, Mr. Speaker said. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker said, allow others who are willing to recycle your waste to pick up and use it. What happens, Mr. Speaker says, sometimes while we are creating or generating waste and we are not recycling it, we are then also stopping others who are willing to come and pick up that waste and use it or recycle it in their business process. So Mr. Speaker said, we need to change our mindset. If you are not, for some reason or the other, are engaged in recycling, if there's someone else, a third party, who are willing to pick it up and recycle it, let them do it. Mr. Speaker said, the reuse of waste is essential to ensuring that potential reusable items do not have a premature end of life. There are two positive externalities in that waste management costs are avoided and delayed, and the burden on natural raw materials is delayed or totally avoided, Mr. Speaker said. For example, if we are able to recycle paper, while we are dealing with an externality, a negative externality about reducing the paper waste going to the dump sites or to the natural resources, to the environment, but we are also delaying or avoiding a burden on the resources which is going to be utilized to produce this paper if we had not recycled the paper waste. So, Mr. Speaker said, we can deal with two outcomes with just a simple approach of recycling waste. Mr. Speaker said, the theme for this year's Global Recycling Day, which was on 18th March, is our recycling heroes. The Ministry, in recognition of the theme, led the national commemoration of the Recycling Day, commending the efforts led by our heroes. These heroes could be our students, our children, individual households, farmers, business owners. The Speaker said, our ministry promoted the vitality of recycling call for action for all Fijians to come together in one accord and put our country and the planet first, reigniting the mindset of communities, businesses, citizenry, and individuals around Fiji. It was a day of reckoning to see recyclables as valued resources. Mr. Speaker said, we need a national movement, Mr. Speaker said. Individuals cannot say, I am not contributing to it and therefore I don't have to do anything. Mr. Speaker said, because if the environment quality reduces, everyone will be affected whether you contributed or not. So environment cannot be seen as a private good, rather environment quality is a public good, Mr. Speaker said. Mr. Speaker said, as the global economy stumbles due to COVID-19 pandemic and the international borders remain closed, nations have adapted to utilize locally available resources and live within their means. Mr. Speaker said, there are a number of positives out of COVID-19. And one positive, Mr. Speaker, often cited by Honourable Minister for Industry and Trade, is about look within, utilize the locally available resources. Mr. Speaker said, amazing opportunity for us to move forward as we get out of this COVID-19 pandemic. The Speaker said the soaring costs and the challenges to cross-border transportation of raw materials have also made a meaningful dent into our thinking. Mr. Speaker said businesses or business houses are now relooking at this, how we are able to re-engineer our production processes while we are sourcing locally for the benefit of the economy and the people, but also we are reducing and saving on transportation costs. Mr. Speaker said, the recycling is the easiest way to protect our environment and protecting the well-being of our communities, the future generations to come. The success of recycling, however, depends on the active participation of every one of us, every individual, every decision-making unit, Mr. Speaker said. When I say the decision-making unit, Mr. Speaker said, whoever, whether it's a farmer, a household, wherever the decisions are being taken, those decisions must include futuristic options and views and future scenarios. The Speaker said, the Ministry of Environment supports the efforts of our partners individuals and companies to ensure that Fiji's recycling sector emerges as a key solution to the environmental problems posed by poor waste management. The Ministry, Mr. Speaker, embarked on several initiatives. To name a few, on the 18th of March last week, the Ministry launched, last week Friday, the Ministry launched the framework for zero waste business certification program targeting the private sector. I'm delighted to inform that there are several businesses that have volunteered to come on board this program. The first business to come on board this program was McDonald's Fiji, Group Fiji. Our hearty congratulations to them for taking this initiative, this important step, Mr. Speaker say. Mr. Speaker say, our ministry is creating a meaningful opportunity to transform plastic bottles, particularly. We are currently working on container deposit regulation under the Environmental Management Act 2005. The container deposit regulation is one such system that will enable and incentivize and motivate people to rather than throwing the bottles, but willingly collect it and take it and deposit for a small return. Mr. Speaker said, this model of adding a mandatory value to the potential recyclables is expected to be extended to other waste forms based on success with the beverage containers such as the PET bottles. So Mr. Speaker said, once we are able to trial this with these PET bottles, we could then extend it to other types of waste which could be treated in the same manner as PET bottles, or which could be deposited in vending machines, etc. So Mr. Speaker said there is good potential for replicating such a system with other difficult waste such as tires, waste oil, and derelict vehicles, to name a few, Mr. Speaker said. You may ask, Mr. Speaker said, what is happening to all these huge tires, Mr. Speaker said? Where is it going, Mr. Speaker said? We need to begin somewhere. We're starting with PET bottles, and we will get there as well, Mr. Speaker said. And I'm sure these waste products are utilized and recycled. The Ministry will be finalizing and putting forward a national 7 policy so that Fiji and its institutions can align to the 7R concept. The policy is intended to promote the concept supporting the circular economy model with the goal of forming a set of legislation to ingrain circular economy into our everyday choices. Mr. Speaker said the government has also declared the Namboro landfill zone as a tax-free landfill area as a tax-free zone to allow for the setup of recycling ventures. The Ministry has partnered with other relevant ministries in promoting this zone and attracting investment groups. The Ministry of Environment recognizes the importance of recycling waste and safeguarding the environment. The Environmental Management Act 2005 sets out the framework for waste management and pollution control in Fiji. The Ministry promotes compliance in newer ways of surveillance and monitoring and support to communities through the waste management think tanks established by the Ministry. So, Mr. Speaker said, we have established a think tank, a group of people, expertise in different areas, on this matter only, noting the gravity of this particular issue. Mr. Speaker said, the Ministry cannot do it alone. As I alluded to earlier on, we need a national movement, Mr. Speaker said, to protect our country, our environment, our natural resources, not only for ourselves, Mr. Speaker said, but for future generations as well. Mr. Speaker said the global community, in consistency with the recycling agenda, are recognizing the efforts of the recycling heroes in their respective countries. This includes the civil society organizations, business sectors, activists, students, etc. So Mr. Speaker said, I wish to join my colleagues in the Ministry of Environment to motivate and call everyone in this country to join us in this national movement to keep our country clean. Thank you, Naka.